And my name is Jenny Sanders. I am the Ecological Restoration Partnership Specialist for DER. This is the DER Partnerships Program Grant Information Session, RFRID DER 2021-03. Thanks for joining us today. We're happy to see so many people interested in this program. I'm the main point of contact for this program. If you have any questions after this webinar, please feel free to contact me at der.partnerships@mass.gov. That's the best email address to reach me regarding this opportunity. And my phone number is 617-626-1508. I'm joined today by two of my colleagues at DER. Hunt Dury is our Deputy Director, and he'll be helping coordinate the webinar today, and he'll say a few words and introduce himself in just a moment. And then Callie Willette is our Procurement and Grant Specialist, and she'll be helping to coordinate your question and answer session later at the end of the webinar, and maybe answer some of those questions along the way, and she'll talk to you in a moment about those. So Hunt, let's go ahead and start with you. If you want to say a few words, please.
Great, thanks, Jenny. Welcome, good morning, everyone. And thanks for joining us this morning for this webinar. I was just looking through the participant list, and it's so great to see so many familiar names and organizations on the registration list and joining us. I'm Hunt Dury, the Deputy Director at DER. And we are really excited to be launching this new Regional Restoration Partnerships Program through this RFR, and to hear your questions about it today. For those of you who are familiar with the Division of Ecological Restoration, you know how important partnerships are to the restoration work that we do. In fact, almost everything that we do is done in close partnership with government agencies, nonprofits, municipalities, and landowners. And since DER's founding in 2009, we've been listening really closely to the needs of our partners and thinking of ways to better meet those needs. And one universal need that we consistently hear from our partners and see through our work is to increase the capacity for restoration across the state. And we think that one of the most effective ways to do that is to help regional organizations build their own capacity to lead and support restoration. And that's why we've created the Partnerships Program. It's to help others outside of DER build capacity to increase the pace and scale of restoration statewide. And Jenny will get more into this in a minute, but we've worked really hard to structure the program based on the needs of our partners. And Jenny has done a lot of great work over the last year, talking with our partners and exploring how best to structure this program. So we hope to learn much through the initial partnerships that stem from this RFR, and to improve the program over time. So thank you again for joining us this morning. And with that, I'm going to pass it to Callie, who's going to explain how the webinar will run today.
Thank you, Hunt. Good morning, everybody. Thanks again for joining us. I see some familiar names on our participant list here, so that's very exciting. I will just echo quickly what Jenny and Hunt have already described, that we're very excited to kick off this program, and we're looking forward to getting to know you folks better as we go through this process of gearing up for our brand new program. So with that being said, some of you joined a little late, but just a reminder, we have everyone on mute except for the three of us, Jenny, Hunt, and I. The chat is disabled, so if you have a question, please use the Q&A tab, which is at the bottom of your screen. Normally where the chat tab would be, you will see a Q&A there instead. I will be monitoring all the questions that come in through that tab, and we will get to those questions at the end of the presentation. So you are welcome to ask questions using that Q&A throughout the presentation, and we'll just get those answers to you folks in the end of the presentation. If for some reason we run out of time and we can't get through all the questions, I'll be taking note of your name, and Jenny will circle back with you individually if your question had not been answered, or if you'd like to go into more detailed discussion with her. And for those folks who may be calling in and just listening instead of joining through the web version, obviously you'll just be able to listen in, but because we're recording this, we'll have the recording along with the Q&A available to you shortly after we're finished here. We'll have it on our website. And the call-ins, if you do have questions, you'll have to circle back with Jenny directly after the presentation and webinar has been completed. And again, we'll give you her contact information if you were not able to write it down when she said it earlier. And let's see. I think that's all I had. But again, keep those questions coming in the Q&A, and I will ping it back to Jenny to kick us off.
Okay, great, thank you. So the purpose of today's presentation, as Hunt mentioned, is to provide you as potential applicants with a program and RFR overview and what DER will be looking for in an application and some details of how to apply. So with that, here's the agenda. Again, program introduction, an RFR overview, how to apply, and then at the end, as Callie mentioned, we'll have time reserved for questions and answers. And the Division of Ecological Restoration, or DER, as Hunt mentioned, we've been working for a long time with community-based partners just like you to restore aquatic ecosystems throughout the Commonwealth. And you may be familiar with the projects. This is a map of our active and past projects. You might be familiar with our priority projects program or the culvert replacement municipal assistance grant program, or CRMA. This is sort of what we're known for. And this work has centered on things like dam removal. Yes?
I'm sorry, we're having some difficulty viewing your presentation.
Oh, okay.
For multiple folks. Do you mind maybe stop sharing and resharing your screen with us?
Yeah. Try this again. Thanks for letting us know. Try it again.
Okay, I can see that now.
Okay.
Folks, if you're still having difficulties, feel free to post that in the Q&A, and I can bring it up with Jenny. But from my view, Jenny, you're good to go.
Gosh, I wonder what you guys did. I wonder you guys didn't see all the other good stuff. There was a really beautiful picture. Okay, so can everyone see the Callie and Hunt? You can see the map, or there we go. Okay.
Yeah,
Yes, and
good.
it looks like the attendees can see it as well. Thanks, Jenny.
Okay, great. So, so now you can see our active and past priority projects and where some of our CRMA projects have taken place. And these are projects that you know, that sorry, I lost my train of thought. So we're talking about things like dam removal, culvert replacements, cranberry bog and salt marsh restoration, and stream and habitat restoration, to name a few. And the distinction, you know, between this and the partnerships program is these are projects, and the partnerships program now is different in that it's focused on building capacity within a region, among our partners like you, to help you implement your own projects in that region through regional restoration partnerships. And so these partnerships will restore degraded aquatic ecosystems and increase climate change resiliency. And so the goal really of the partnerships program is to increase, as Hunt said, the pace and scale of restoration in Massachusetts by building out that capacity for local and regional organizations to collaboratively advance that restoration work. So DER will still continue to do this work. We want to help elevate that capacity of you, our partners. And this program will do that over time. The partnerships program starts with a 3-year partnership that can be extended up to 5 years maximum. And so it's a little bit different than these other programs in that this competitive, we're launching now the competitive request for responses, RFR. I'm going to call it an RFR for now, to support this work with funding for staff that will support that partnership and funding to implement those projects within your region. So the presentation will go into a little bit more detail about how we're going to do that. So I've said a lot of things to you there, but the first is really, what is a regional restoration partnership? It starts, and this is an overview really, it starts with the Division of Ecological Restoration. It starts with us, DER, through this competitive RFR. And we will be selecting up to 3 lead organizations through the application process. Nonprofit organizations and regional planning organizations are eligible to apply to become those lead organizations. As I mentioned, that funding can be used to hire a restoration coordinator who will coordinate your regional restoration partnership. And one of the things that they'll do is work with stakeholders in your partnership region to help identify and advance restoration priorities. So that RC, or restoration coordinator, is the point person for your partnership. They're also a liaison for DER, and they're really an important figure to help keep things moving forward in your partnership region. And the stakeholders are kind of your movers and shakers. They're not the general public. They're more like the people you count on to help you identify and advance priorities. They're a core group, and they're representative of your region's interests. And they're the people who really help you identify and collaborate in your region. Your partnership region is the area where the partnership activities take place. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. So I'm going to break down each one of these components in the next few slides. So as I mentioned, the lead organization is the partnership leader. The lead organization is the applicant or the grantee. There's one lead organization per application, and it's the partnership leader. The lead organization employs the restoration coordinator. The restoration coordinator is not an employee of DER. The lead organization is ideally connected in the community with a track record of engagement and has those enduring relationships that help get that important work done. So has those relationships with stakeholders or potential stakeholders, and we would be looking for lead organizations that can really lead and support restoration within that partnership region so that you can collaboratively work and leverage those relationships. Again, I just want to stress that to be accepted into the program as a lead organization, the applicant needs to be a 501c3 or a regional planning agency. So the restoration coordinator is a qualified professional. Of course, they would be someone who has a background knowledge of natural resource management and aquatic ecosystems, but they also need a lot of other skills to help coordinate a regional restoration partnership. They need group facilitation skills because they're going to help that group plan and advance restoration projects and activities. They need good interpersonal skills. They're going to need good project management and time management skills. They're going to need fundraising skills because they're going to have to help fund those activities. And they also need the ability to communicate and coordinate outreach activities. And so we recognize that it might be difficult for one person to walk in the door with all of these skills. And part of the partnerships program has built in to support the lead organization, first with assessment and then development of these skills. And so stakeholders also contribute to this. Looking back at that big picture that I showed you initially, your stakeholders also contribute to your partnership success. And I'm sorry, I'm having a little trouble with my, okay. Your stakeholders also contribute to your success. And as I mentioned, they're the movers and the shakers in your community, and they help the lead organization advance their partnership goals. So they have, you as a lead organization have the flexibility to structure this in any way that makes sense for you. You can structure your partnership in a way that makes sense given your partnership location or your regional setting. But your partnership needs to be functional. So what does a functional partnership look like? Well, your stakeholders should meet with regularity. They should help collaboratively plan restoration activities and projects. Your stakeholders should help identify and pursue funding sources, willing landowners. They should help you anticipate problems and with implementation and identify solutions. And they should also help implement projects either directly or indirectly. And they will also help you coordinate and build trust in the community. And they do all of this within your partnership region as you identify it. So let's talk a little bit about that partnership region. What is a partnership region? Well, I moved here a year ago, and I found quickly there are a lot of ways to carve up the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. This map shows it in 7 regions. I've seen it in 4 and in 5 and many other ways. What I know is that many of you are working across boundaries and have formed strategic alliances across major basins. And some of you are regional planning agency representatives, and you're working collaboratively across your own boundaries. And you do this because you are trying to get important work done, and we recognize this. And so some of your existing alliances or your partnerships don't fit neatly into jurisdictional boundaries or watershed boundaries. So we have left the partnerships program deliberately flexible for you to define your own partnership region as you see fit to get this work done. But there are guidelines. And this approach is flexible to allow for natural partnership formation and preservation of existing partnerships, and to allow you to innovate and build on some of our core ideas. But I did mention that we want you to work with your stakeholders to be strategic as you implement your restoration activities and projects. And we want you to do that across a landscape scale. So the idea is that you are implementing things within a region strategically. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment, but your partnership region does have guidelines. And those guidelines are that at a minimum, your partnership region needs to be 75 square miles or greater. needs to be located within the jurisdictional boundaries of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and it cannot overlap with another DER funded partnership. And so this is key. We have limited funding and we just simply cannot fund overlapping partnerships. So if you think that you might be proposing a partnership in an area where someone else might be proposing a partnership, it's a good idea to go ahead and coordinate early with others and try to work together to propose something together. You'll be more competitive. Okay, so I've talked a little bit about funding. What will funding support? If I really had to simplify it, you'll see in the RFR a lot of clear information about what our funding supports. But if I really had to simplify it, the funding is supporting a restoration coordinator and the things that that restoration coordinator needs to do their job. And then the funding supports implementation of ecological restoration activities. So let's start with the restoration coordinator. We'll pay for, the funding will pay for a salary and fringe benefits. And there's a 25% match required for that portion of the funding. You may also request funding for direct expenses to support that restoration coordinator in carrying out their duties. And there's no match required for that portion of the request. You may also request indirect expenses up to 15% of the amount requested for the restoration coordinator salary and fringe benefits. There is no match required for that portion of your request. The implementation funding for fiscal year 22 is limited to $20,000, and it supports activities such as planning, permitting, and construction for ecological restoration that meets the definition of process-based ecological restoration, which you'll see detailed in the RFR. There is no match required for implementation funding. We will also provide support through templates and our own technical support to help, as I mentioned, within your partnership region, to help you strategically identify which projects that you pursue with implementation. And so that's built into this as well. And there is no match required for that. The lead organization with that restoration coordinator can hire a new employee or designate an existing qualified staff person. And it just has to be greater than a half-time position or greater. And these things are all detailed in the RFR announcement. So I just mentioned planning. The implementation activities won't be detailed in your application. This application is really about your vision for your partnership and how you plan to organize your stakeholders and advance things. You don't need to have specific project details to apply to this RFR. This is something that we expect to support you in the identification of once you enter the program. So everybody will enter the program and have their partnership and be supported through me and through DER, first with developing a partnership plan together with their stakeholders, collaboratively identifying goals, vision, and priorities for their partnership region. And then in a little more detail, identify an implementation plan for their partnership region. And they may use existing materials if they have them, but that's where they'll prioritize the projects that they pursue. And then these details will be worked into a restoration coordinator's annual work plan. And this will be detailed This will have detailed activities, and this will be updated annually. And this is how the coordinator will know what to focus on. And that restoration coordinator will always work with an annual work plan, but even before there's a partnership plan, they will always have something to guide them. But over time, as these plans are developed, this is how they will know what to focus on. And this is how the group will stay motivated and focused. So we don't want to overwhelm anybody with planning. We want to help people use what they have, but we want it to be strategic. And we want you to know that you don't already have to have things figured out to apply. So partnerships in all stages of development are eligible to apply. And the idea is to have you systematically focus over time in one basin or one region and focus those implementation funds over time to see some change. So another component of the program that we want you to be aware of is that lead organizations and restoration coordinators and stakeholders, even at times, will be asked to provide structured feedback on elements of the partnerships program. And so what that means is everything from the application process and the budget forms that you used, or some of these training and support materials that we provide to you, or the planning templates that I just mentioned we might give to you to help you through those planning steps, and even your reimbursement and request processes. We want to know how those are working for you and whether they could be refined and improved. And so we might be asking you through web surveys or web meetings like this, or even in-person meetings as maybe things change when we're allowed to meet. We're going to be asking for your feedback. And we will ask every lead organization to participate in those processes to help us iteratively refine and improve the program. So that's something we want everyone to be aware of before they apply. So I've told you a little bit about what's in the RFR and what some of our expectations are. So I'd like for you to know some key program dates. The pre-RFR, as you know, was released on June 7th. It closes on June 25th. So that's the end of the time where you can interact with me and ask questions about your partnership. The RFR opens on June 28th. That's where you can start preparing and submitting your application. There's a period built into the RFR where you can also ask technical questions about the application, but you can no longer ask questions specific to your partnership. The application deadline is July 23rd, 2021. That's the big red star in the middle. We anticipate announcing awards by October of this year, 2021, and then we're hoping that we can execute agreements by November 2021. So how to apply? The first two items on this list come from you. The first two items on the list are things that we might provide. Last two items are things that you might produce, that you would produce. So the application form will be released when the RFR is released. You can review section 1B of the pre-RFR for a list of items that the application will address. And also attachment 3 in the pre-RFR summarizes things that the application form is likely to contain. The application budget and partnership schedule. There's a sample budget and partnership schedule available now on DER's website. And you can start playing with that now. I'm going to show you what it looks like on the next slide. It's also available on Combis. The stakeholder letters of support, a minimum of 1 is required. These would describe the relationship between the applicant and the identified stakeholder and any anticipated roles and contributions of the stakeholder. So those would be good to start working on early so that you can have those ready to submit. And then a partnership region map. This would show the boundaries, municipalities contained within the partnership region, and the approximate area of your partnership region. And DER's website, again, is www.mass.gov/DER. That's where some of these items that I've mentioned are available, including the pre-RFR and the sample draft budget. So I know this is a little bit busy, but I want to call your attention to the gold bar at the top. This is an estimation tool that we prepared for you. You can use this tool. It's a spreadsheet. You can use this tool if you have an idea of what the base salary for your restoration coordinator might be and the full-time equivalent. Right now, I haven't put a salary in there, but I've put a 3/4 time. It's called an FTE at the top. You enter in your fringe rate, and then it automatically calculates everything for you, including the current fiscal year's request, the projected future year's request. I mentioned that this is a 3-year partnership term. And then at the very bottom, if you can see at the bottom of the screen, it also estimates the required match that you would be expected to contribute based on that request. And that's one thing I wanted to let you know, that this tool is helpful to help you understand what your match would be if you enter the program, and help you understand what kind of match that would be required. And it also helps you calculate any direct costs you might have or any other costs. If you have a special circumstance, for example, if you want to transition a restoration coordinator from a half-time to a full-time midway through the year, or you don't want to request the 15% indirect maximum that is allowable, this tool might not work for you. You may need to create your own budget, and you may not want to use this, and you're welcome to do that. You can just disregard this budget sheet and use your own, and you're welcome to contact me until June 25th for help or specific questions doing that. So again, reminders. The eligibility is that regional planning agencies and nonprofit organizations may apply as the applicant to become the lead organization. Your partnership region is a minimum of 75 square miles or greater and must not overlap with another DER-funded partnership region. And we ask that you commit to a 25% match for the salary and fringe request for the restoration coordinator. And those deadlines are, again, that the pre-RFR closes on June 25th at 4 p.m. and that the full application will be due no later than July 23rd, 2021 at 4 p.m. And with that, I'm just going to put my contact information up there again. My name is Jenny Sanders. I'm the partnership specialist and the contact for this opportunity. The best email to reach me for this, if you have questions about this opportunity, is der.partnerships@mass.gov. And the phone number is 617-626-1508. And DER's website is www.mass.gov/DER. And if you have any questions, please submit them through the Q&A box at the bottom of this webinar, and we'll start working on answering those. And thanks for your attention.
Thank you, Jenny. Great job. You're getting some kudos in the chat from some of the attendees about how excited they are. So, okay, so to kick off our Q&A, and as a reminder, folks, continue to add questions in the chat as we start to answer other questions. So for our first question, we have, what role do you see the restoration coordinator playing as compared to DER's restoration specialists?
Oh, well, you mean, okay, so the question, it sounds like, is how does this restoration coordinator compare to our own restoration specialist? Okay, well, this person is different in that, one, they're not a DER employee, and two, they're locally connected. That's an advantage that the lead organization and the restoration coordinator has. They are locally connected with the community and kind of has their finger on the pulse of the community within that region. But they may be similar in ways that they are going to learn over time a lot of skill in planning and implementing and managing restoration projects. They're going to have natural resource expertise and project management expertise. And so there are similarities and there are differences, but the main is that they're not employees of DER. So, I mean, it's almost like a mini extension of what we do.
And Jenny, I'll
Hopefully
just
they'll-
offer a couple of additional thoughts on that, from Sarah's question. So, you know, in addition to, you know, building, either coming to the position and or building project management skills, I think equally important and probably more important for this position is regional, you know, regional coordination skills, working with stakeholders within the region, working with municipalities, developing, you know, facilitating those members and participants in the partnership to craft the, you know, the vision and the goals and the priorities for the partnership. And then working with them and helping them collectively to identify the restoration priorities and strategies for how those priorities will be implemented, providing assistance to others in terms of, you know, everything from fundraising to, you know, permitting coordination, community outreach. So I think there's more sort of facilitation and regional planning activities for the restoration coordinator than our typical DER project managers engage in. They do that more on a project specific basis with some variability, but those regional skills and collaboration and facilitation skills are going to be really important for the restoration coordinators.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. So we got a few questions in the chat about indirect expenses and fringe benefits, what's covered, the difference between those two. If you want to kind of share more about what the difference is, what DER will be covering, and what can count as match from the partner.
Let me tell, there were like 3 questions in there. Let me start with what
Yeah,
are
I'll
okay.
keep track of the things you answer.
Okay. Indirect expenses are not expenses like they're like your overhead expenses, right? They're things that are not directly related to implementing your project. So it's a portion of your light bill, your phone bill, that those are things that we recognize that the restoration coordinator is a part of your organization as a staff person, and it takes a portion of expenses to support that staff person in the office: rent, lights, phone, electricity. You may charge a portion of those costs to the grant to support that position, up to a percent, 15%. And then what was the next question? So
What are fringe benefits and
okay.
how are they different from indirect?
Yes. Okay. Fringe benefits are directly supporting the staff position, and it's a little bit different because those are direct. Those are like FICA taxes, direct employee benefits. So you provide things typically to a staff person, whatever your organization provides to the staff person, the cost of insurance like health insurance, dental, retirement benefits, those are in your fringe calculations. And those are different. Those may be calculated differently.
And DER offers to cover what percentage of those? You said up to
Oh,
a certain
yes.
percentage? Can you just clarify the
Up to
difference
30%.
of indirect
Usually that's fringe.
fringe?
Yes, a
So
30% fringe rate. Yeah. And I can
Okay.
provide examples of those if someone has a lot of questions about those types of calculations and you don't already have a percent calculated for your organization. You're welcome to make an appointment with me and we can talk about that.
Thanks, Jenny. Okay, so next question is, how much are you, DER, interested in incorporating climate resistance into restoration projects?
Resilience or
Yeah, resilience.
Okay.
Yeah,
Climate resilience.
that's okay.
We're very interested in promoting climate resiliency in the restoration projects. In fact, one of the things that you'll see in the RFR is that one of the reasons that we allow the restoration coordinator position to be a half-time position is if you already have, say, funding for a half-time position for a climate resiliency related position, and you want to use this opportunity to match that position with our position and create one full-time position, you may do that. So it's not directly restoration related, but you could match and move forward with something that is complementary in that way.
And I'll add to that, Jenny, that the climate resilience that we are interested in through this program, as with all of DER's projects, is really focused on the climate resilience benefits that emerge from ecological restoration work.
Yeah.
So it's, in almost all ecological restoration projects have climate resilience benefits, both for nature and for people and communities. So there needs to be a strong nexus between the ecological restoration work and the co-benefits for climate resilience.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Thank you. Okay, so we had a few questions about the minimum qualifications of a restoration coordinator. One specific is many nonprofits have the skills and expertise that you're stating a restoration coordinator should have. If the NGO is a lead organization, can their skills and expertise support the restoration coordinator who may, for example, be strong in one area but not have all the described skills? Can the NGO receive funding for this?
Oh, yeah, I think I understand what they're saying. Like, the sum of the parts create the whole. Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to find a person who's really just great at everything. I get that. But we do, I mean, I think if your restoration coordinator was scared of public speaking, that might be a problem. And if you had a pinch hitter who just couldn't coordinate the stakeholders, that might be a problem. So, we are looking for a coordinator who can generally perform the duties as they're outlined. But yeah, I mean, yeah, yes, you can, if you have a large nonprofit that has some other positions that can support the partnership, and those positions and the investments you make in those positions, they can be used as match. So maybe you have a coordinator who isn't very good at, let's say, GIS. They don't have GIS skills, but you have a GIS person who frequently contributes a portion of their time to support that, the work that coordinator is doing. That's wonderful. And that portion of that person's time can be used as match. So maybe that answers two questions in one.
Yeah, and again, I'll just to add to what you're explaining, Jenny. I think there will be important negotiations with the selected lead organizations through the RFR. But we do want to be clear up front that the duties, the primary duties that are explained for the restoration coordinator in the RFR need to be carried out by a single restoration coordinator. So this kind of gets at another question as well, a little further down, which is, are there opportunities to split co-coordinator roles across two organizations or even within a single organization? And the answer to that is no. There needs to be one single restoration coordinator per partnership. And as Jenny explained, if there are, I'd say not ancillary, but secondary skills that other staff within the lead organization have, like GIS, for instance, then we will consider the use or the contribution of those skills from other staff, either as match or potentially even for the use of some of the implementation funding that is also part of this RFR. So hopefully that helps to answer the question. You know, each group is going to have different circumstances, and that's why, you know, if you have questions like that, it's definitely a great idea to follow up with Jenny to talk about your specific ideas and circumstances.
Okay, thank you. So, Jenny, can you just remind us of the salary range for this coordinator?
Yeah, the RFR states that, and that's actually important. The RFR states that the anticipated range is 55,000 to 75,000 for the coordinator. And so DER will be anticipating will fund 75% of that, because remember, you're paying for a 25% match of that.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you. And I think you already sort of mentioned this, what educational training background is required for the restoration coordinator.
Yeah, I mean, there's not training that is necessarily stated as a requirement in the RFR, but I mean, it would be ideal if they had a NAFA resources, you know, background and some understanding of aquatic systems, you know, those interpersonal skills, group facilitation skills, some of those things are project management skills. Those things are all going to be nice to have. And one thing I didn't mention, it felt like a lot of detail in the presentation, but we plan to support the lead organizations, if they want it, with things like desire or, you know, ideal qualifications or skill sets. You know, we can provide you with a list of those things. We can provide you with a sample job description if you need it to hire. So we can provide you with those things if you need them.
Okay. And this is similar to that, so just in terms of the professional development and trainings that will be covered through direct or indirect expenses.
You wouldn't have to request funding for that. This would just be built into the program. So you don't have to line item those requests. This is part of partnerships program. This is a capacity building program. And so DER views capacity building as, yes, funding for staff, but also knowledge building, skill building. And we do this as a long-term process. So that's why it's a longer investment on our, you know, this is a partnership over 3 years with DER, with the opportunity to extend to a maximum of 5 years, or with, you'll see in the RFR, it says a maximum of 5 years. That's because we know that it takes a long time to build capacity, and capacity has many facets. So we will be offering through me initially trainings, like I said, templates, support to help you develop your partnership. But this is a learning process for all of us, which is why we want your feedback through that process to figure out how to make it better for you.
Yeah, and I think part of the question may also be, is training
Covered.
that specifically increases the skill set of the restoration coordinator to carry out their duties, is that training potentially eligible for funding? And
Yeah.
the answer is yes. And that would be subject, assuming that you're a selected lead organization, that kind of direct expense would be subject to negotiation for the annual grant contracts.
Thank you, Hunt. Yes.
Okay, thank you. We probably have time for one or two more questions. And just looking through here, we will make the spreadsheet example available
It's
to
already
everyone.
available.
Yep, on the DER website.
I
We will-
see one that I think I need to address about subawards.
Sure.
You may make subawards to your stakeholder partners. Someone asked, can we make subawards to stakeholder partners? And if so, how do you see that working? You may propose that. I mentioned you have the flexibility to propose any stakeholder structure that makes sense to you. You may propose that. Just describe it, how you see it working. And if it makes sense to you, you would manage those subawards and you would make the request. And if you can facilitate them and help them implement those projects, we support that.
And that's
Sorry.
what I would suggest if anybody's considering that. Some follow-up with Jenny to talk through the specifics of your situation might be helpful for you.
Okay, let's see. Any formal way to find out other partnerships might be forming in order to avoid overlap for the application process? Can we get a registration list of this meeting?
Hunt, do you know the registration list? People want to know who's in this meeting.
Right, that's what we're going to have to get back to you. That seems to have some legal aspects to it. We have to check in on that.
Privacy concerns, yeah.
Yeah, Callie, do you want to address how we're going to respond to the questions that we can't get to on the webinar today?
Yes, so I have been taking notes of all the other questions we've received that we cannot get to today. We're going to type up those answers and post them on our website with the recording of the presentation. So you'll have that to reference later. For those of you folks who have quite a few questions, some of them are very specific, it seems like, to what you're hoping to do for your application. I recommend reaching out to Jenny specifically. Jenny's happy, well, now I'm volunteering you, Jenny, but Jenny is happy to communicate with each of you individually between now and the close of the pre-RFR openly about what you're intending to do within your application to assist any programmatic questions and clarity that you may need before you officially apply.
And I know we just hit the 11 o'clock hour here. Reading through these questions, many of them are answered specifically in the RFR. So that's another way. I know it's a fairly dense read, but if you're really seriously thinking about applying, then reading that closely is highly recommended to answer a bunch of these questions. I do want to respond to one that I see here from Ian. Can match for the salary be in kind? For example, time spent by an executive director or a GIS person, or does it need to be cash contribution toward the coordinator's salary and benefits? And the answer is yes, match can be in-kind contributions, like a portion of the executive director's compensation that's needed for oversight and supervision of the coordinator, and the other example, GIS contributions. I think, you know, the details of that we need to sort out, because the match needs to be directly supporting the restoration coordinator and their duties. So the details matter in what the options are.
I'm trying to answer some of these easily if I can.
Well, with that being said, I think that's the close of our webinar. Again, the recording will be made available on the DER website, along with the questions from the Q&A session, or the answers from the Q&A session.
Yeah, and I believe we can download all of these questions, and if we weren't able to answer them, we may be able to add them to the list and add some answers. If you still have questions that you need answers to, you're welcome to contact me directly, and I'll try to work through those with you. So thanks again, everybody, for attending and for your thoughtful questions, and we look forward to your applications, hopefully.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.